As an American, I eat apple pie, play baseball under its blue skies. As an American, I travel this land and follow her roads wherever I can. From sea to shining sea, I've seen a lot, and none of it will be forgot. And when my country called, I gave my all as an American. I was born into freedom in a wonderful land of mountains and plains, rivers and lakes. Forever American is what I am. A past as rich as any can be. My father's worked hard to give this to me. I love this place I come from. To live another way I cannot foresee. As an American, will be forgot. And when my country called, I gave my all as an American. I was born into freedom in a wonderful land of mountains and plains, rivers and lakes. Forever American is what I am. A past as rich as any can be. My father's worked hard to give this to me. I love this place I come from. To live another way I cannot foresee. As an American,
Well, hello, everybody. How you doing tonight? Anxiety is still here, but living with it. Hi, Karen. Hi, Richard. Hi, Alex. Hi, Nana. Hi, Teresa. Hi, Matt. Hello, everyone. Hopefully, everyone's getting in here all right. God bless you guys for being here tonight. Of course, we've got a lot to talk about, a lot happening in the world. Try to go through it fast, but actually get it all covered. Forecasts are hitting for a recession to hit before 2024. So get ready for massive interest rate cuts as, of course, all this unfolds. If not a recession, then war, depending on what actually happens on what's unfolding next. Hi, Brenda. Hi, Linda. How you guys doing tonight? It's crazy watching the Federal Reserve looking at eye-popping 175 point cut next year. That's 2.75%. That's huge. That's nearly 4 times the steepest cut that markets were even expecting. This is crazy. A single cut that high would be the biggest ever. And of course, the Federal Reserve's cutting rates in one foul swoop. But of course, it's expected at this point. Watching what's happening, of course, with the market. I mean, even the White House is saying that the U.S. economy is heading back to like a Clinton era. Of course, we don't believe that. We're not heading towards the 90s where everybody has plenty of money. More likely, though, it resembles close to the turbulent times of the 1970s, and everybody can pretty much remember that. Well, hopefully you can remember that if you were born then. Meanwhile, of course, White House is saying the inflation period after World War II acts as a better guide of pent-up demand for people to go and buy goods. I don't think it's either. I think we're heading to more of like the 20s, the 25, when the recession really hit hard. Yeah, well, everybody has their own opinion at this point. But I can tell you this, the White House says it's not looking good. Most banking and economic leaders are looking at what's happening throughout the past and today are showing that there's going to be major issues coming ahead. A recession is happening. Of course, they don't call it what we're in a recession, even though we're obviously faced with that. Oh, you're walking the dog outside and it's cold. I'm sorry. Puppy dog, it's got to be cold too then. But watching this course unfold is crazy. Definition of growth and inflation and rate attributes that are happening all right now as default. The global financial crisis is truly happening. Growth is not happening. Inflation and rate evasions are happening. You know, people raising rates to, of course, try to stop an inflation soaring economy. This is a problem. Yeah, we're heading into a depression, and they're going to call it a recession at this point, but it's looking more like the 20s to me. I mean, we're not going to see a roaring parallel of greatness happening anytime soon. I mean, obviously, with the GDP, of course, with the growth of the GDP up only 4.9%, with interest rates almost that high alone. So seeing federal rate hikes at that same base rate level at the GDP total growth is not a good sign. Too many people are struggling. Too many people are having to work more than one job at this point, and it's not helping. Hinging on supplies, of course, as we throw thorns in our own side by, of course, stopping trade with China and reducing trade with them is not good at this point. Cutting our oil usage is, of course, having a bigger problem with 13 member nations of OPEC, which produce roughly 80% of the world's crude oil, are now producing less oil than any time since August 2021. Watching Saudi Arabia and Russia decide this summer to cut oil productions by 1 million barrels together, respectively. I mean, this is a problem. Now they're watching this month, China announcing it required a special export license for battery-grade graphite now, restricting sales to international markets. Nobody's talking about this. This is a huge problem. No more graphite coming out of China means a critical material for producing both lithium and cobalt batteries. Graphite is essential for manufacturing of batteries for electric vehicles. Right now, China is controlling more than 90% of the world's supply. We don't talk about graphite because usually it's not a big issue. This is becoming a bigger issue than anybody expected, effectively locking out the U.S. market of graphite. Of course, we're stopping them from buying computer chips, but what does that really matter to them at this point? Yeah, Biden keeps calling his vice president president. It's pretty sad. But this, of course, amongst other risks, including energy crisis and climate disasters and war. War, of course, is being on the front foremost, and it's all unfolding in record time. Of course, the House today did vote to prevent a government shutdown, as GOP Speaker Mike Johnson, of course, relies on Democrats for the help and did, of course, get it done. The House voted overwhelmingly today to prevent government shutdown. Mike Johnson reached across the aisle on both sides. Hard right conservatives revolted against his plan, but of course it did pass. 336 to 95, which is good at this point. Not good that more money is going to Ukraine, but of course we'll break that down later when we see the actual numbers come out later this week. Today, of course, if you were paying attention to anything happening, rallies and protests in D.C., from Free Gaza from Hamas to tens of thousands of protesters supporting Israel's rally in Washington. Tens of thousands of people in Washington today rallying for support of Israel, no matter what's happening, even though the nation's under heavy scrutiny tonight, as watching the stuff that's happening to the people there. Gaza, of course, Israel slowly opening up the gates to allow fuel to go in tonight. After, of course, running out of fuel for power and water of any kind anywhere in the strip of Gaza, it's devastating. We're watching over 2.3 million people evacuating from their homes in northern Gaza. Watching people fleeing south. 2.3 million people have fled their homes in Gaza. It's crazy. Watching now, of course, as thousands flee Gaza's main hospital. Hundreds, including babies, are still trapped by the fighting happening with Israel's forces and Hamas forces. Of course, Gaza or Israel's trying to claim right now that Hamas is hiding Gaza's main hospital. But that has not been seen or on scene yet, so I'm just going to take them at their word. But having hundreds of people trapped in there, including babies, as thousands of, course, people flee the main hospital tonight. UN nations are still condoning Hamas for what they did and just describe using a hospital and, of course, civilians as human shields. It's disgusting, and it is. This is truly grave problems happening now. Of course, Israel's giving a into civilian casualties or trying to curb civilian casualties at this rate is a very good thing. I'm glad that is happening. I don't think the civilians deserve to die from a war that they're not trying to fight, and of course, a war they never wanted to happen at this point. Taking Israel carrying out precise and targeted operations down inside of Gaza, which I am 100% for. Hamas needs to go. That's not a question. But taking out civilian lives at alarming rates was not okay with me at the beginning of this. But operations, of course, against Hamas are now being targeted in specific areas, including in the hospital. This is good. To avoid harm to citizens is always good. Civilians do not deserve to die for no reason. It is crazy out there. Watching this unfold, though, I've been since the beginning of this on October 7th. Once again, all military activity in the hospital must cease within 12 hours. Hamas needs to get out of there. They need to let these people go. There's children and people trapped inside the hospital that don't have a way out. That's not it. I mean, watching what's happening here in the U.S., of course, as stuff climbs out of control. Kiev, no different. Missile strikes hitting Kiev as Russia is improvised explosives are derailing Russian freight train cars and everything else. Russia forces targeted Ukraine's capital city as part of an overnight bombardment across the country. Local officials on Sunday, of course, for Saturday and Sunday, while drones that Russian officials blamed on Ukraine's military targeted areas around Moscow. Watching these now ballistic missiles being targeted directly at Ukrainians' capital, Kiev. The head, of course, of the military administration now saying that no one was injured, of course, and requesting more defensive batteries. Ukrainian Air Force later confirmed that, of course, one of the missiles was used in an attack, a first attempt missile strike on Kiev almost 2 months ago. It doesn't make sense because none of this makes sense at this point. Everywhere in Ukraine, though, strikes are killing people in all three regions, including Kyrgyzstan and Donetsk, and the power plant, of course, another region where heavy bombardments are falling from Russian forces. And watching Ukraine's air defense now trying to keep up with anything, really trying to repel attacks against Odessa and all these other regions, and not having a good luck with it. I mean, Russia's launched, of course, 31 Shad drones. Of only 19 were shot down at this point. They were shooting down an average of 80%. Now they're less than 60%. So this is not a good sign. Of course, this war wages on. And Russia, of course, knowing that Kiev and Ukraine being forced to pull up women to fight this war at this point, there's no more fighters left. Russian forces, though, are launching X-31 aircraft missiles, of course, and anti-ship missiles. So a lot of stuff is going on packed right now and getting ready to happen in Ukraine. As we know, the winter months are hitting hard. Even in the beginning of the winter, them losing the ability to use Abrams tanks because they ran them into the mud, and of course the mud is starting to freeze. Sad. Nobody's talking about that on mainstream media, though, as, of course, we know this is happening. There's, of course, videos of Ukrainian soldiers saying, what's the point of having such a heavy tank, basically, in Ukraine? where it's going to sink into the mud because they know that's what they're dealing with there. Yeah, the U.S. is always pissing off countries. Ukraine is basically done for at this point, though. Putin, of course, and top military leaders of Russia today met in the southern military headquarters to assess his war in Ukraine. And everything seems to be all good with all, of course, leaders and heads of state of his country. Watching, of course, as the war drags on to winter. Of course, this is where Russia really makes ground in the winter because they're used to fighting this kind of fight. Meanwhile, Ukraine is fighting with unexperienced soldiers, not experienced for fighting cold weather. They're not trained in it. They're not even trained to really fight at this point. So we'll see what's going to happen this winter as we watch Ukraine's military resources erode, as Russia, of course, brings forward its fighting forces this winter. This war of attrition, of course, is going to come to some kind of bad point pretty soon, I suspect. Watching all this unfold, though, is just devastating. Meanwhile, here in the U.S., we do have some good news. Judge of Michigan said Trump can stay on the primary ballot, rejecting challenges under the insurrection clause, stating basically that he was not federally found guilty of insurrection. They actually tried to impeach him in the Congress. We know this, of insurrection. And there wasn't enough evidence to even bring those charges true to fruition at this point. So, of course, the insurrection provision of Article 4 or Amendment 14 would not allow for anybody to pull off the ballot. Of course, this judge leading the way for other judges now, having to hear the same case in their states, showing that, of course, the disqualification on this section of the Constitution is somebody that has to actively engage in an insurrection. They cannot be akin to it or somebody claiming an insurrection that they didn't directly invoke. A rebellion or insurrection, whether not someone participated in. Of course, this is the question to Congress, because the judge wrote, cannot any member of or form possible embodying represent qualities of every citizen of every nation, or to this House of Representatives and the Senate, basically saying the House and the Senate couldn't find him guilty. Well, see, this is what he said. The House and the Senate couldn't find him guilty of these charges. So then no judge or judicial officer should ever take the ability to do this. If the entire Senate could not find him guilty, then why should one judge make a ruling? Basically, this is what he said in his ruling, and this is important. Even though we're going to see it appealed immediately for people, of course, this Ron Fenton garbage. This is a standard that's going to be held. I guarantee it throughout every judge, constitutionalist, left wing, doesn't matter. Because this judge wrote direct statements that show the country directly what they wanted to, what the truth of the heart of the situation was. Did Donald Trump have insurrectionist quality? Anything that he did, was it to form an insurrection? No. He never once made statements of an insurrection. Even though the House and the Senate tried to push this, they couldn't get it through Congress. So if the Congress couldn't answer this question, as he did, do it for sure, then there's no way a single sitting judge could. And I think this is a great example of what should have happened with any judge, of course, handling a case from anything to do with this ballot, 14th Amendment garbage. Can't portray him as inciting an attack on January 6th because he never did. He never said rush into Congress and stop them from certifying the election. He never said. He said go there peacefully and make your voices heard. That's a long, long road for insurrection. Of course, watching Colorado judge expected to rule similarly Friday, as closing arguments were scheduled for tomorrow. We'll be covering that Friday when it does come up. But I have a feeling this judge, of course, will follow suit with the Michigan or Minnesota judge. course, watching constitutionality and eligibility issues should be left up to the federal government, not state governments. And of course, this was already tried in the federal government. So this going forward, hopefully, good. Other news, courts, of course, ruled that the leases in the Gulf waters that have been delayed by whale protections debate by the Biden administration and throwing anything they can to, of course, hold off the auction for federal Gulf oil or Gulf of Mexico oil leases and gas drilling. Now the judge ordered that they must happen within 37 days. That's good news. Federal appeal court ruled today rejecting the environmentalist argument against the sale, throwing out the plans that Biden administration to scale back the sale to protect the endangered species of the whale. First of all, if you live in the Gulf of Mexico, you know there's not many whales in the Gulf of Mexico. It is not deep water. It is shallow water. This whole thing was bogus at the beginning of this. This is the Biden administration to do nothing more than set the country back on its exploration of oil and natural gas that the country desperately needs to survive at this point. He is pushing us to a war with the Middle East. We know this. It's not a question. But watching this, of course, the Fifth Circuit appeals ruling means the lease sale, of course, once again that was set for September, postponed multiple times against legal fights, of course, will be held this December, covering about 73 million acres. As originally planned, the administration announced the sale in the spring. Of course, this will be happening in December. So the sale, of course, that was supposed to happen in spring, Biden, of course, saying, oh, yeah, we're going to sell the oil rights back and we're going to have them drilling and mining again for drilling, of course, and for oil and gas. The administration's been fighting this in court by using environmental arguments. So luckily, now, of course, those drilling sales will go forward. That's what needs to happen. We need oil and natural gas produced here in the United States. Yeah, no elections in Ukraine. No elections. Yeah, I guarantee I'm guaranteeing before the end of this year, because the only information I have, we will be at war and we'll be in a recession at that point. Only because the recession points that they're making, that are happening and, of course, unfolding in the economy, are going to hit hard this Christmas as people buy less gifts and do less traveling. Will show that the Federal Reserve has to lower rates, of course, to allow that stuff to happen. At the same time, inflation will again go out of control. It'll be like a Venezuela. Venezuela coming to a town near you. You are exactly right, Teresa. That is what's unfolding. Sorry to say, but we don't have another plan. Government doesn't have another way to do this at this point. Unfortunately, watching this all unfold is just sad. I don't know what's happening in San Francisco. San Francisco's just crazy. I don't even try to pay attention to it. I'm sorry. Because that place is just the pits of hell. Let's be honest. Let's not lie to ourselves. That place is awful. It's going to continue to be awful. We do definitely appreciate you guys supporting the channel. It's very, very glad for that. I do have one thing I need to say tonight because, of course, I did receive a money order from somebody, which we do appreciate. Our bank will not accept money orders, so it's going to be very complicated to get that cashed. But please do not send money orders. You can send checks, you can send gifts for kids for Christmas, you can send cash, you can send Venmo, PayPal, Zelle, but do not send money orders. That's the only thing I have to say. Please do not send money orders. But God bless you guys. God bless America, of course. And we will have the Christmas gift list up. We're only doing stockings this year, so nothing will be expensive. There will all be cheaper items. But we're going to try to do as many families as possible, give stockings to at least the kids in need. I know it's been hard this year. I don't have money to just keep dumping into charity, which I've been trying to do. But definitely bless you guys. The economy's so bad that, yeah, Santa is having to downsize this year in Santa. So God bless you. Thank you guys for being with us. And of course, we'll be back tomorrow night at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. And I will not be late. I will be on time, I promise. One way or another, I will make it on time. Have a great night. Till then, be safe, be sound, and pray for each other. God bless you all.